today's episode, we had Rabeel Warraich with us. He's the founder and the general partner at Sarmayacar, one of the biggest VC fund in Pakistan. It's $25 million. It's been deployed to invest in Abhi and Bykea in the early days, and now they are building a fund with the Saudis. It's very exciting, and join us in this discussion. You will just love it. And please do subscribe in the channel. It will mean the word to me to support this content. Welcome, Rabeel. Happy to have you today with us in Wasssl podcast. This season is about all the builders in Pakistan that are moving things forward. And happy to have you in Lahore.
Thank you very much for having me.
The first question is always that I ask my guests is like, why are you doing what you're doing? What is your personal, maybe professional, it can be a mix. Why?
I think ultimately at the end of the day, there's an element of wanting to build in my own country where there are a lot of gaps. I think I've a lot indeed. And I think I'm lucky in a way that I got trained in a sector and in an asset class that had a bit of a vacuum in the country. And when we started, we were really the first institutional venture capital fund in the country. And so that element of enabling entrepreneurs, that's a very important thing as well. We can't just keep going around and saying, hey, entrepreneurship is going to be really the one avenue that brings Pakistan out of whatever poverty that we have or the lack of development that we experience, the challenges more broadly. But you need to enable them as well. And what I was lucky to do was to learn about how businesses get built, how you finance them, and hopefully help them grow. And just move that a little bit earlier stage where the Pakistani opportunity was at that time. So really, I'm getting to do what I've been trained in. I'm getting to do it in my country, and I'm doing it with people that I've grown up with effectively. So.
Okay, so what brought you back to Pakistan? Is this the main reason? Because you've been living abroad for a long time, working with multinationals, traveling all over the world.
I think...
what was the trigger, maybe?
So a very good question, because the reasoning was this, but the trigger was actually my best friend, Karsten, mentioning once whether I would be able to live without knowing what I could have done for Pakistan and in Pakistan. And I think that really prompted this thought around, you have one life, and I didn't want to spend all my life building a resume. Build a resume for what?
Yeah,
you have
for whom? For whom?
You have to put it to use at some point. And I think a lot of things aligned at that time. There was...
What time then? It's 10 years back?
So this is 2018 when we set up this first fund. I had started increasing the trips that I was doing to Pakistan even a couple of years before. In fact, every day I had off, I was just spending in Pakistan trying to figure out what role was there, what gaps existed.
How can I be relevant?
Exactly. And I think from a structural perspective, the enablement of 3G and 4G in Pakistan and mobile internet penetration increasing at a rapid pace, that signified the opportunity. And I think there was a lot of mismatch between the venture capital that was getting invested versus what the demand was from startups at the time. And figured you have to take the leap at some point, and jumped into it thinking, okay, as long as there's something that can sustain, even a smaller fund, that would open up more opportunities in the future. But we got lucky. Even our first fund was a meaningful size, and I think
it was 25 million.
25 million, which again for Pakistan at the time,
it's too big.
It's a lot of money. Now, of course, the ecosystem has seen close to $1 billion come in since 2018 to now. However, that's still a drop in the ocean, and maybe we'll talk about that later as well. But the trigger was really some motivation myself, of course, family being here, and friends, and ultimately this being my own backyard. So I felt if I had a competitive advantage, it had to be here, right? Rather than staying in London or these high finance hubs around the world.
Of course, because you're gonna be, we're just talking off camera, in these countries you will always be a second-class citizen, probably. And even if not, there is so much competition in these markets, London, for example, or Paris or New York, that it's very hard to stand out. But in countries like Morocco or Pakistan, it's easy and you can really bring the value faster.
I often say you do something 10% better in Morocco and Pakistan and it's already going to be noticed. But the reality is, like, the kind of experiences that we have the opportunity to do something like 50% better or more than that, right? Like,
Exactly.
And I think it's really about a mental block that sometimes we have, because we get comfortable in our cushy roles, like, wherever we are elsewhere in the world. And oftentimes you ignored, like, the opportunities that exist by virtue of there being challenges. If there weren't any challenges, it would also be very boring to build, and it would be a lot more competitive. So maybe one of the reasons why there's a vacuum is a lot of people don't delve into it because they think that the challenges cannot be overcome. However, if you are from there, you have, like, the requisite skills, and just need to put in some hard work, and gets done.
I'm so curious, actually, because you've been to Morgan Stanley, you've done MIT, Oxford, so many great and big names. So I want to take a small masterclass of how we can build a fund. Honestly, I know that you go and grab the money from some LPs, which is like limited partners, like people who has a lot of money, and just like put some of it. But how you convince them for Pakistan? And
I think there's a couple of considerations. One is just like the trust element, which and trust cutting across two ways.
As a partner,
as a
partner, because you have the experience and
exactly. So one element is that
the track record.
People trust you with investing their money. That element, of course, requires, like, the entire career that I had before that.
At least 10, 15 years experience.
Exactly, which leads up to a point where people trust you with their money and to make sound investment choices and decisions. The second element, particularly in the case of Pakistan, is how will it be structured, and, like, is it safe? Because Pakistan suffers from this perception reality gap that people think that anyone who's Pakistani is going to take their money and run away on day one. So there's certain structuring elements that have to be incorporated. For example, unfortunately, still to this day, the Pakistani regime is not yet sophisticated enough for the funds to be domiciled here. Of course, they can be, but they can only be done in Pakistani currency, which, of course, increases, like, an additional layer of risk in there. So both of those elements had to be solved for. I had, of course, worked at Morgan Stanley, like you pointed out, and then I did private equity, which is effectively an investment a professional role. So I just had to move some of that knowledge to an earlier stage. So that had built up credibility. And then, of course, whenever your ex-bosses and your colleagues are investing in you, that's a strong sign to go and approach other limited partners as well. None of that is possible unless you are willing to put your own money on the line as well and have skin in the game. So we started that way.
So how much you need to put 1 million to get the other 24?
Well, that's a $1 million question. Like, yeah, no, I think there's enough. Like, generally for a fund, a couple of % of the total commitments should be enough. But of course, if you do more, that's a sign of more confidence that other LPs will build on you. The key there is to also target the right mix of institutions, high net worth individuals, and call them, more common kind of like.
So what is the right mix? Tell us.
So our largest investors are the IFC. We were in fact lucky to be the first venture.
IFC institution.
International Finance Corporation, part of the World Bank Group.
Okay.
And that gave a stamp of validation, which goes a long way.
Investors. Oh.
And off the back of that, we got a bunch of Pakistani big conglomerate groups, called them family offices. Mm-hmm. But our biggest single component would be Pakistanis in the diaspora, investors, consultants, professionals who are based outside of Pakistan but wanted to do something for the country. Pakistan, and short of them packing up their bags and coming here and setting up their own funds, they supported at the beginning, which went a long way again in connecting the dots as well. Because that way, you're not just getting capital, you're also getting their experience, through their input.
Of course.
You're also getting a little bit of a network effect, which then whenever they're around other Pakistanis or other professionals, they then convey, the message that we all want to convey, which is that exciting things are happening in the country. And it's worth looking at this ecosystem, which has previously not been on the radar, but might offer outsized return opportunities as well.